Hey everyone, welcome to Build. I'm your host, Brittany Jones Cooper. Fencer Ibtihaj Muhammad wowed all of us when she became the first Muslim American woman to win an Olympic medal at the 2016 Games in Rio. Today, she's here to talk about her new book, Proud, which chronicles her winding road to the Olympic Games and how she managed to stay true to herself while playing by the rules. Please help me welcome Ibtihaj Muhammad.
Hi.
So this nice little book just came out yesterday.
Yes.
How does it feel to look at it and see it and touch it and that people are going to get to read it?
I am so proud. I mean, it feels like a lot of hard work went into this book in penning your story. It is very therapeutic. I had to unpack a lot of different obstacles and moments in my life that when you're in it and you're competing, you know, at the highest level of sport, you don't really have time to think about why things happen the way that they do. You try not to let them affect you, and you just keep your eye on the prize, and that's, you know, qualifying for the games and hoping to bring home a medal. And in telling my story and my fight for this unlikely American dream, it was a lot of moments that, you know, they're hard to recount. And I think about all the times when it would have been a lot easier to quit and stop. And I'm happy that I didn't.
I'm happy you didn't either.
Yeah.
Yeah. So you also, it has a companion book, and I want to call to this one too, which I love. It's for a young adult kind of version.
Yeah,
Maybe,
so this is our Young Readers edition. That was really important to me to have because when I was a kid, you know, I didn't have anyone who looked like me in the sporting world that I could look to for like inspiration or to kind of see myself in. And I remember how important Serena and Venus were to me in the way that I was able to see myself as a kid, how much they meant to be this young black kid watching these, like, you know, women who aren't too far off in age from me and you know, to see them play and take the tennis world by storm, to be unapologetic, not just about who they are as black women and these black girls at the time, but also about, you know, just being like complete badasses on the court. I feel like I just love watching them dominate. And I saw myself, I think even like, you know, unconsciously, I saw myself take on fencing in that same way.
have you had a chance to meet Venus and Serena?
I have. I met them at the Olympic Games, and I was like, oh my God, this is happening, you know, like a pinch me moment in my life. And I remember telling them how much they meant to me when I was growing up, why it's important that we see ourselves and them, what they mean to not just like me or us as black women, but to women in general. I mean, Serena making it all the way to the finals at Wimbledon as a new mom is prolific, right? It's like she's showing that there are no limitations when you set your mind to something. So she's continuing to inspire each of us now, even as a new mom, and I just really look up to her. Yeah.
And I can see, you know, I read the book, and there's a lot of similarities, I think, between the two of you, mainly in just being unapologetic about being competitive. And I think as a woman, sometimes that's hard to do because people want you to be more meek and kind of, and it's like, no, I'm a competitor, and that's a good thing, and that's how you kind of reach these goals.
Oh yeah, I mean, I'm one of 5 kids, so I've been competitive what feels like, you know, since birth. Like, I mean, I can remember, you know, just walking up the stairs with my sister. We raced to the top, right? We would race like in the swimming pool. We were always playing horse in the backyard. There are a lot of different things when you come from large families that tend to be more competitive than they are in families that don't have as many kids. But I think that in growing up with so many siblings and having this real competitive edge from the time I was a kid, it translated so well into sport. But also, one of the great things about participating in team sport at the Olympics is and being part of a team, which I think is really important for our kids. It teaches you so much about working well with others, appreciating the people around you, appreciating yourself, appreciating your teammates, and what everyone can bring to the table.
I love the stories you tell with your older brother. I grew up with 3 older brothers, and you guys racing in the pool and you just wanting to beat him. Like, that makes, I think growing up with an older brother is so, like, important in so many ways.
I mean, I was smaller than my brother. We were about 18 months apart, and I couldn't beat him. I wasn't faster than him. He was bigger than me, so I wasn't stronger than him. But that didn't stop me from trying. So I feel like I was always trying to beat this kid, and I had a really hard time doing it. But I do know I can take my brother in fencing. Like, he can't hang with me on the fencing strip.
So let's talk a little bit about your upbringing. You grew up in Maplewood, New Jersey. I grew up in Omaha, Nebraska. So when I was reading about your experiences, sort of being like the only Muslim in your neighborhood, but I was like the only black kid anywhere. You know, how do you think that kind of shaped your viewpoints and how you kind of moved through life? Because it's one of those things when you look back, you're like, oh, maybe that was a little like difficult. But I'm sure at the time you're just a kid and you're just trying to like make friends and fit in and
Oh
all these
yeah.
things.
Maplewood, it's only about 30 minutes from here in New York City, and it's a pretty like inclusive, diverse community. I was really blessed to grow up not really acknowledging or not really, didn't realize that I was different. To me, growing up as a Muslim kid, growing up as a black kid in a predominantly white town, my life seemed very normal. When people ask about what was it like to, wear hijab as a kid, what was it like to, grow up as a Muslim as a kid, and it's like, but that was my norm. For me, it seemed very normal. This was my way of life. But I remember starting fencing at 12 years old. Fencing was the first space for me where I came to realize that my skin color and my hijab had the power to change how people treated me. And so when I look back, like we talked about these different moments where we're like, man, actually that was kind of difficult. I don't know how I learned to navigate these spaces of people treating me differently because I was a black kid, in the sport of fencing, or because I wore hijab. And society's always going to tell you, people are always going to tell you what you should and shouldn't do, where you belong, where you don't belong. And for me, there was a lot of, you don't belong here, what are you doing here? You would be better off playing basketball. Black kids don't fence. Or, Muslim girls don't participate in sport. And to hear that as a kid, it's like it can really change not only how you feel about yourself, but it can change the direction of your journey and the discourse of your journey. And for me, I've always been that kid who's like so myopic in my thought and my goals, and I never wavered from what I wanted to do. I was very stubborn in that sense and headstrong. I'm like, no, I'm going to do this. I don't really care if you like it. I'm doing it, And I've always had that kind of energy. But to me, this is why the Young Readers edition and my book to me are so important, because I have to show that strength and resilience. You don't have to do what other people want you to do. Why are we looking to for others to understand our journey when it's unique to us, right? Your journey is about you and what you want and what your strengths are, your desires, your goals, and your dreams. Other people aren't meant to understand it. It's unique to you.
From reading the book, it seemed like your parents really were this blessing, in that when you came home, you guys had a close-knit family. You could talk about things. They were supporting you, actually pushing you to do sports and things like that. So how do you think that influenced your life? Because like you said, you were kind of maybe dealing with some things outside of the home, but it seems like at home, you really had this support system that I think a lot of people would be really thankful for,
Oh, it's interesting because I tell this story about our family dynamic, and that it keeps you very humble and very rooted. And I'm not sure if that's because of our faith. I don't know what that stems from, but in our family, like a Olympic medal, not a huge deal. Writing a book, not a big deal. It's like, what's for dinner, So I feel like my family, even though I wouldn't be where I am today without them. I know that my mom and my sister in particular got me through really tough moments as a member of Team USA, moments that I wasn't sure I was going to make it out of. I battled depression for quite a long time in not really understanding how to navigate a space where I wasn't welcome as a minority member of Team USA, but also trying to understand how that pressure to perform with that weight on my shoulders of not being accepted and feeling like I wasn't being accepted, having to deal with not social anxiety, performance anxiety. It was affecting how I competed. It was affecting my results. And having not just family members who were supportive in those moments, but also having the awareness to ask for help, which I think a lot of us struggle to do because mental health is so taboo. We don't talk about it. I know for sure not in the Black community. It's the same in the Muslim community, and I think in general, on a global level, especially here as Americans, we fail to effectively discuss and make people feel as if they can discuss mental health.
What time period were you kind of struggling with depression? Was it as you were training for the Olympic team, or was it when you were already?
No, so my first national team was in 2010, and I would say after our team won our first world championship in 2014 is when I started to see these issues of performance anxiety happen.
And from reading your story, we graduated around the same time. And so I know that at that point in your life, you had stepped away from fencing and you're focusing more on school and your career. But it was also the economy was horrible.
Right.
And so I kind of saw that you had struggles then even. And I think it just was so great to see you be so honest about like, you've had these highs and lows and that's life.
Yeah. I mean, especially as an Olympic athlete, we see this very brief window into Olympians' lives. It's every 4 years at the Olympic Games. You get this short clip, sometimes on AOL Build, of our lives, right? On the podium, this high in our life when we're doing really well. But in those 4 off years, we're out competing. Fencers travel to about 12 different countries a year representing Team USA. You're on the road, 2-3 weeks at a time in random countries. And for me, I mean, imagine traveling not just as an African American to a lot of countries, in Europe, but also with hijab, where the reception, I'm just like not well received. And having to deal with that, like you said, to graduate in the midst of the recession, I had to make a decision. It's like, do I go to law school? Do I try to find a job in corporate America? Do I, make this decision to embark on this journey of sport? When a lot of people told me it wasn't possible. I'd never been to a senior competition. I'd never been to an international competition. I had no world ranking, no national ranking. And I was 22 with a dream. I was like, I'm going to make it happen. And people are like, it's not happening for you. So it was really trying to not just combat other people's notions of what my journey could be, but also push myself into believing it was something that was possible.
And again, I want to applaud you for like having the people around you. It sounds like you've really surrounded yourself with people who encourage you most of the time. There are definitely some detractors in there, but one is your coach growing up, Coach Mistilli.
Oh, yeah.
And he kind of sounds like this force that you were able to go back to, and he kind of helped you get re-energized about the sport and sort of move forward, which I thought was a really touching part of the book.
Yeah, so Frank Mistilli, when I was 12, my mom and I discovered fencing, driving past a local high school. We see it. My mom's like, don't know what it is. The athletes are covered. You have to try it. That's how I start fencing. My mom's very resourceful, finds the one fencing coach in our town who happens to be Frank Mistilli. Give you an idea of what Frank looks like. He looks like a mobster, like literally like Italian mobster. Slick back hair, glasses, always dresses really nice, like gold blingy, like rings and a gold watch. Awesome guy. Went to, at 12, lesson in his garage to teach me about fencing. My dad hated it, and he's like, you're not fencing. But I Google it, and I'm like, top 10 schools in the country have it. That's how I start fencing. But Frank is the first person to tell me that I have potential as an athlete. He's one of these unique coaches that is able to take anybody who has athletic talent, who has not an ounce of athletic talent, and get them to believe that they're the next LeBron. Right? He's just one of those people who's there to motivate you and pick you up. I love Frank. He's been such a big part of my life, but I remember at some point, it was right before Olympic qualifiers started, and I hadn't seen Frank in a while. At this point, I'd been on the national team forever. This is in 2015. He shows up to a World Cup in Korea with one of his young students from New Jersey. And at this point, I know more about the sport than Frank, but I remember him just being on the side of my strip and just saying over and over, like, you got this, like, you can do this, you're amazing, like, you look great out there. And just hearing his words, and it transformed me back to that 12-year-old kid of just having someone tell you that you can be great. And just hearing that, I think, subconsciously transforms the way you feel about yourself.
Absolutely. So then you go to the Olympics.
Right? Random.
You get that bronze team medal.
Yes.
I mean, what did he have to say about that? Was that like a moment you could be like, look, you know, we did it?
I mean, Frank is the reason that I even switched to saber. I was an awful épée fencer. I wasn't very good. I fenced épée for 3 years. Frank at 16 forced me to change to saber because my team needed a saberist. And I feel like him seeing this competitor in me that was so fierce, and I was like very aggressive. The weapon that I fenced, which is saber, we're like the sprinters of fencing. So you have to be like quick on your feet. You have to be really fast. And saber matches my personality more. So I feel like I owe it to Frank to push me into switching weapons. And that's how I won a medal. Other than that, I'd probably be an attorney somewhere practicing law.
I did some Googling on the difference between, and saber is intense.
It is intense.
It is the most fun to watch, though, for that reason.
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
I'm glad. Thank God I saw the light, right?
So post-Olympics, have you had time to just really process that moment? Because you are one of the most disciplined people I've ever met. I mean, reading just the tenacity it took for you to just stay on this course, like you said, very myopic and just focus. And then you achieved this goal. Looking back, how do you feel? What do you think? You know, I don't even know what that would feel like.
You know, to be honest, it's one of those things where you just put your head down and you pray that if you put in the hard work, the outcome you're looking for will happen. And one thing that I take away from my journey is that I always like to have faith that things happen the way that they're supposed to. And whether or not I made the Olympic team, I was going to leave knowing that I put in everything I could to qualify, but being okay if it didn't happen. I see firsthand what it looks like when when athletes don't qualify for the Olympic team. It happens more often than you think. There are very few of us who get the opportunity to go. I see what heartbreak and depression and can look like when it doesn't happen. And I mentally prepared myself. And I'm not sure if that comes from a spiritual place, but I said, you know what? Whatever happens is meant to happen, and I'm going to be okay with that. But know that I'm going to put in everything I can in order to get there. And I think that we shouldn't fear from dreaming too big. We shouldn't be afraid of giving ourselves permission to be great. You know, there are some things out there that no one's done yet. There are going to be people around you that tell you you're not capable, you're not strong enough, you can't do it. And this is not just for kids. This is even for us as adults. There are things in our life that we may be a little afraid to do, but the worst thing that can happen is you fall and you get back up. The worst thing that could happen is you fail and you try again. And to me, that's my biggest takeaway from the games is that, you know, this easily could have not happened, but in order to arrive at this point in my career, I had to have started. And it all just starts with like a leap of faith.
Do you think that resolve comes from your deep faith?
I don't know. I mean, I don't know. I am just so type A and super competitive. You know, I have a younger sister who's in the back, my sister Faiza. She is one of the most talented athletes that I've ever competed against and with. She's a very, very talented fencer, but I work harder than her. So, I mean, I don't think this story could have ended any better than having my sister with me on the Olympic team because she's that good. But this medal at the Olympic Games, this book, my journey, it feels so much, just as much as it feels my own, it feels like my sister's because we were, you know, in each other's corner every step of the way. I mean, I've traveled the world with her, and I feel very appreciative to have her in my life. And I know that it's not just talent that gets you here. It's hard work because I'm not the most talented fencer. I just outwork everyone around me. Yeah.
And now you have this platform, and now you're able to speak out about issues that are near and dear to you. And I think especially now, given our very frustrating political times, seeing your face is so important, and hearing your message is so important. And so is that a weight that you carry, you know, happily and proudly, that you get to go out and speak about issues, whether it be immigration or gun violence or, you know, you have your organization Athletes for Impact.
Yeah.
And you guys have a lot of different platforms. And I was just looking at the site and I was like, that is so cool that now she has the opportunity to really talk about some of these things.
Well, it felt like a necessity. You know, I spent so much of my career with, you know, our national governing body asking me to delete tweets, to delete posts because they weren't in line with the way the organization, feels. And for me, I've never been one to waver from using my platform. Even when it was really small and you have like 100 followers, it's like, no, I have to speak on things that I don't feel are right. I have to speak on social issues. We have way too many people who have showed us how to do it, right? I always think of Muhammad Ali and someone who jeopardized so much, not just his safety and his freedom and his financial security, but even that of his family. And he did that so that I even have the opportunity to sit here today as an Olympian, as an Olympic medalist, and have this opportunity. So to me, it's an easy decision. And Athletes for Impact was founded so that I can help lead, the other horses to the water, and to show them that this is important. We have to use our platform in order to create change, not just globally, but also locally within our own communities. And there's some amazing athletes like Maya Moore, Michael Bennett, Layla Ali. I mean, some really Megan Rapinoe, athletes that are really strong in their own respective sport, but also feel just as strongly as I do about supporting athletes like Colin Kaepernick and Mahmoud Abdul Rauf, and Dr. John Carlos is a part of it. I had a poster of John Carlos, Tommy Smith, and Peter Norman from the '68 Mexico City Games in the Black Power fists. I had that poster in college. So I feel like my life has come full circle to be in a part of an organization with Dr. John Carlos.
It's really, really special.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And I love following your tweets, by the way.
Oh, thank you.
I think now's a good time to go to the audience for a couple of questions. What do we have first? Oh.
Hello.
Hi.
I was just wondering, what is your biggest struggle how do I explain? So what is your biggest struggle to get where you are right now, and how did you overcome that struggle?
I think one of the biggest struggles is an internal one. It has to do with self. It is constantly trying to block out the hate and the doubt that comes sometimes in the form of friends. I remember some people that I thought were friends when I was younger, and I realize now that those are not friends. Those are not good people. My motivation for going out for the Olympic team stems from me being out with a friend at an event, and a girl came to me and she says, "Hi, are you, this Olympic fencer?" And before I could tell her that I wasn't an Olympian, a friend interjected, and she's like, "She's not an Olympian." And in that moment, it was really hurtful because I'm like, ew, this girl's not a friend. But it was also this moment of, me wanting that for my younger self, for this little girl, and that she wanted to see not just a woman of color, but also a Muslim woman in that space. And that's where this dream was really born. It was like, let me change the face of, the sports world. I want people to see Muslim women occupy this space because to me, what greater space than sport to be inclusive and diverse. And I think that when we challenge ourselves to only be positive, to be our own cheerleader, to be supportive with yourself in every single moment, you have to be your own biggest cheerleader to be successful in this life. You can't let other people create doubt to tell you're not strong enough, you're not beautiful enough, you're not enough as you exist. And I think that we each are. And we have to remind ourselves of that because we're in a society that's meant to break us and make us feel like we're inadequate and we're not enough. And I think that the beauty is that you are enough. You just have to realize that for yourself.
And in your case, too, that you're the only one in the gym. You're the one putting in the hours. It really does come down to you. And I saw that a lot in your book where you're like, nobody else can do the work for you. Like, you have to really believe it.
That's why I play individual sport. There's no man, why didn't you get the ball? Or why didn't you make the shot? For me, it's like I'm out there by myself. And even if, I don't win the match, I know that I can put in the necessary work in order to, excel the next competition. Yeah.
Question?
First of all, I love your outfit.
Thank
you.
you.
Look wonderful.
Thank you. I saw your jacket walking in. Can you show everyone?
Thank you. Yes.
Because it's so cute. Look at that. So fitting.
Yeah, thank you. I want to know what's a good advice you can give to minorities. The reason why I'm asking this is because recently I'm Latina. I experienced my first big discrimination moment. And I would like to know what advice do you have for minorities. Yeah.
I think the biggest act of resistance that we as people of color, we as women can have in this moment is to be ourselves. Don't change any part of yourself. Don't be willing to change any part of yourself to make other people feel comfortable. Don't feel the pressure to do that. There is something to be said for people who are strong in their moment to be unapologetically themselves, because it's not your job to change. It's not your job to change any part of yourself to make other people feel comfortable. And I know exactly what discrimination feels like. I'm so sorry that that happened to you. I'm so sorry that you were made to feel that way. I myself was kicked out of a fabric store in LA last week for just being me. And it hurts every single time, but that's not going to stop me from being myself ever. Yeah.
We love you. And one last question.
Yeah.
Hi.
We'll take two.
Yeah, we'll go there.
Yeah. Do I stand up? Okay. So before you were talking about the importance of mental health, and I wanted to know what advice would you give to people with anxiety or depression to achieve their goals, just like you, because you're so inspiring.
I think not being afraid to ask for help. I didn't know what I was experiencing. I had no idea what it was. And my anxiety was manifesting itself in a physical way, which was affecting, my ability to compete. And in having a sports psychologist, it transformed the way I was able to deal with my anxiety. So I would say first and foremost, don't be afraid to ask for help. If you're a kid, talk to your parents, talk to a teacher. If you're an adult, try to seek help, because I know that that's what was most beneficial to me in that moment. Yeah.
Yeah, I would just second that. It's like, it's not a secret you need to keep, for sure. Mm-hmm. I think the moment you talk about it, it releases some of the power it has over you.
Oh, yeah. It's very freeing to even discuss it.
Mm-hmm.
Even now, like years later, I don't mind talking about it because I'm hoping that it helps someone else. I wish I had that.
And one last question now.
First of all, thank you so much for being unapologetic of who you are. That's very
Thank
important for everybody. I want to know, since your achievement at the Olympics and everything you have done, have you seen any progress when it comes to inclusivity in sports and also at the delegation of the Olympic delegation as a result of it?
I think so. I know that my sport seems to be more diverse. I see more Muslim girls going out there and trying fencing for the first time, which is awesome. I think, sometimes for each of us, it's like you can't be what you can't see. So to have somebody in that space allows you to unconsciously graph your aspiration. It's, revolutionary in a sense that it's happening even right now in this moment in the state that we're in politically. So I'm hoping that it continues to change. I don't want to be the only, Muslim woman on the Olympic team next go around. I hope there's more of us. I hope there's more people of color in sports like fencing, gymnastics, swimming. There were so many firsts this last Olympics that warmed my heart to see. And in 2020, I hope that we see more.
I mean, you mentioned 2020. I'm just curious, where are you going to be in 2020? Is that something you're working towards?
Well, I took a break to write my book. So I need to get back in the gym and try to get in shape to even be a blip on the map for 2020. But I hope so. The Olympics was one of the most amazing moments in my life, and I would be so proud to represent Team USA at the next games.
Yeah, something tells me we're going to see you there. I've got a hunch.
You got a hunch?
Yeah. Well, Ibtihaj, it was so great chatting with you guys. You can go get the book now. Proud, My Fight for an Unlikely American Dream is available now where books are sold. Give it up for Ibtihaj Muhammad.
Thank you. Bye.